The very basis of every business is a single question. Doesn't matter the business you're in, what problem are you solving? Where it gets tricky is the second question, which is there money in the problem? And even if I solve a problem, as long as that problem is not a 10 points material enough for the market I'm solving it for, then what I'm doing is I'm tickling myself. In academic terms, it's called intellectual masturbation. And intellectual masturbation is when professors meet to talk about things that we forgot. But for them,
welcome back to Backroomconvos. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Listen, on this week's episode, we are talking about, today's episode, we are talking about entrepreneurship and probability and stats. So I've been talking to my friend by the name of Eddie Murphy. I don't know, for some of you, you might know who I'm talking about, Eddie Murphy. For huge of like a portion of my friends know him as Eddie Murphy, but his name is Johannes. So earlier on in the day, we are having a short conversation about, business and entrepreneurship, and I was still thinking about, what are we going to talk about on this Thursday, because it's always a struggle for me to think about content on the go, or pre-rehearse or have a lot of things. Like, I just want everything to be natural, to talk about things that I'm an expert in, or have someone who's an expert in that particular field. That's why it's necessary for me to always have guests who are expert in politics, in modeling. That's why we have some of these interviews that we have with the guests that come on the show. So please don't forget to follow, comment, rate the show, and give us a notification if you've done that. And for those of you who are wondering what's the song of the day, I had it on the screen now. I just moved it. So the song of the day is by Benny the Butcher featuring J. Cole. So if you are a fan of Benny the Butcher, you'd know that he released an album in 2020 by the name of Tana Talk 4, which the single that I'm talking about is a part of that album. So it's Benny the Butcher featuring J. Cole. The album name is Tana Talk 4. It was released 2020. Hip hop. If you're a fan of hip hop, listen to that. It's a lovely joint. I've been listening, to the joint as I was, rehearsing for. Was I rehearsing even while I was preparing for this show? I was bumping that, listening to it. I was like, oh, what's the song of the day? And I think it felt right to give, this joint. So the name of the joint is Johnny P Candy. I didn't say. So the name of the song is Johnny's P Candy. So check that out on YouTube. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube Music, Apple Music, and Deezer, or any aggregator that you listen your music from. You can find it there. So yeah, a huge portion of people that are fans of J. Cole, they do know, but J. Cole is in the process of releasing the Fall Off. We don't know the dates yet, but we'll make sure as soon as we know to update you as to when he's releasing that. And shout out to people, who are showing us love, man. I think I was looking at stats before we went on to this episode, and I was looking at stats of people who are listening to the podcast. We had people from the States, but we're no longer ranking in the States. So I saw that we had people who were following us from the States, so we are no longer ranking. We still do for sure have people who are listening to us from the States, but currently in South Africa we are ranking 90 in the entertainment sector, and in Botswana we are ranking number 7 in Botswana currently in Apple Podcast. That's for people who are wondering. In Botswana, Apple Podcast, you can go out and check us out on Chartable if you want to see the stats for yourself. Go out to Chartable, search Backroomconvos, you'll see we're ranking number 7 in Apple Podcast Botswana News Entertainment. And shout out to you, to everybody that's showing us love from every place in the world, you know what I mean? And I'd really like to talk about people like Nabo, who've shown us love from Thailand. People shown us love, I think, in Nairobi as well. We had people listening to us from Nairobi, And I know Kamu is also in the US, is listening to the podcast. Those are like some of the few names that I can think of at the top of my head, So, as I mentioned before, when I started the show, I did say to you that we are going to talk about entrepreneurship, stats, and probability. So I do have a story for you as always, because in these solo episodes, I think it's a perfect time for you to have an intimate conversation where I get to tell you some of these stories about my journey, my life journey, snippets of everything that's been going on in my life. You remember the story that I told you about the taxi, and I think it's doing well even today. And I could tell from that, like, a huge portion of the episodes that we are making, the solo episodes that we are making, are ranking higher than the episodes that we do with a lot of guests. So I was like, maybe we need to do more of those episodes on our road to 100 episodes. Then we'll start to have more guests. I think it makes sense in that way. And I think with the consistency that we on, I can see with like some of the people covering us, the blogs covering us, and it goes to show that the work that we are putting in as a community is really paying off. And I'm trying so much not to feed myself on the basis of instant gratification. I'm sorry for that, instant gratification, and I'm trying to be that person who's more into like delayed gratification, because now each and every day I'm like looking as to like how we doing, the stats, the numbers, and I'm like, it's important. It's not really important for me to like tell you about the numbers of the show, but at the same time I'm like, it's good to like show which there's people who are actually listening to us, to the people who don't believe that there's people who are actually listening to us. We do have people that listen to us, and I'd really like to appreciate that. And that's how I think I mize that thing, like the instant gratification. I'm still on the basis of like, I believe in delayed gratification, but when it is what it is. So the story that I have for you, entrepreneurship, and how like the story is based upon like how I was introduced to the journey of entrepreneurship and all of that, and how it's going actually, and how it's going with everything. It started when I was young. My mom, I think, shout out to my mom, rest in peace to her as well. So my mom earlier on is still in primary. Is it primary? I'm not sure exactly, but she had a tech shop where I was born. Like, I was born and raised in Soweto, Baragwana Hospital, boom, boom, boom. So I was born in Soweto, raised, and growing up, my mom always had a talk shop going on in the house. Like every other family members, like my family, a huge portion of my family, they do have like that going on. I don't know if it's a conscious thing, but they do have like tech shops, but they never really go anywhere. I don't know why that's the case, but now that I have a bit of experience, I can tell, this is why this thing is not working out. It's because of A, B, and C, and that came because of experience that I have now, of which I didn't have 10 years later. But now I really appreciate the platform that was provided by my mom, because I am at this point who I am because of like the little or the introduction to entrepreneurship via that selling candies or snacks in that small shop at the house. I did that with my mom, and grandmother had also had a shop as well, also worked there during the weekends. Really got that feel of entrepreneurship as to what is entrepreneurship from that base, and really understand how money works. I think it's very important to understand how money works and see the relationship that people have with money, and how people, like, I didn't have that knowledge instantaneously, but I was gradually moving towards that. So like the habits and how you do certain things, of which I'm going to introduce some of the key principles that you can apply as an entrepreneur to succeed in your business, right? So grandmother, that happened, grandmother passes away, boom, 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 uncle takes over the business, and, he puts me in. The time I was like in grade 11, I remember. He puts me in, he's like, yo, bro, like, this is an opportunity for you to make, pocket money, or like, I don't know what you guys call it. Imali just call it carry. I think we call it carry. They call it carry. So like it's like come through in the money carry via the shop. I come through, I kill it. Like the numbers are looking good. So I see an opportunity at this point to say like, my uncle firstly is not counting the stock, is not doing all the due diligence he should be doing. As a person who's in business, you need to know the numbers. You need to be obsessed, know how much you're bringing in, how much you're taking out, the expenses, the profits. You need to know that. But he was so in love with money that every other aspect of the business didn't matter. Then I saw an opportunity to say, oh, okay, he doesn't care about this. As long as I bring in money to the business, he doesn't care about every other thing. So in that, I started, employing some of my friends to say, like, if you sell these things, you can get so much, X amount, you know what I mean? Get X amount, we pushed that business with my friends, made a lot of money, throughout my grade 11. I made a bit of money, a lot of it, even for a child who's in grade 11, I was making a lot. And I started incorporating selling cigarettes in school, but I had someone who was working, so teachers, I was not into like selling. I had someone who was selling, in school, had that from the money that I made from, the shop that my uncle has, so I made that, made profits. Then eventually my friends get caught, the business, my uncle sees that we've been stealing for him, he gives me a bidding, he black Sams me basically. I'm Black Sam, I'm blind, I'm Black Sam. Then what happened after that, it was like, matric, I had to focus, then speak to my uncle. For a huge portion of the time, we had a fallout, then we never really spoke after that. And I had to like reevaluate my life as to what I want in life, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, what I need to improve, And I was like, oh, I really wanted to do, I think when I was coming, in grade 12, I was like, not sure if I should be studying international relations or going to varsity. And I was like, maybe it's best if I take a gap year so I can think as to what I want to do. And just not go to varsity for the sake of going into varsity. So I took that gap year and, I was kicked out of the house, funny enough. So I had to and I did mention in the previous episode that I was kicked out and I had to stay with a friend. For those people who didn't catch that episode, please go on to episode 35, if I'm not mistaken, and listen to that. So kicked out, stayed there. And, I started introspecting my life, and I realized at some point I really like music, just listening to music, a lot of hip hop, a lot of writing. It was like writing a lot of songs for a lot of people at the time in the church. I was writing a lot of songs, of course, hip hop being the inspiration behind all the writing and stuff. And at the point I was like, okay, I think because I like music so much, why not come up with a concept or an idea and build a business around it? So, I came up with the plan, came up with the proposals and everything, but the problem was like the funding and the equipment was very expensive, still expensive. I was like, this business is not gonna work because this funding, we don't have money, a lot of things are happening. For that year and a half, I was like back and forth thinking as to like, what should we do? Business? Do we go to school, invest business school? What's going on? It's like, it's cool. I'm going to do something about this. So I formally compiled a business proposal, sent it through to a lot of people, rejected. I started moving in circles of people who were like-minded. They gave me ideas. We brainstormed a lot of things. Shout out to Odeka Musanda, who was one of the people who I had like lengthy conversation about entrepreneurship. And, we had those conversations where he was enlightening me about a lot of things that are happening, of course, So took it from there, Later on, as I got an opportunity in a company, Denji Kalkin, I got an opportunity to be a sales rep in that company. Then went through into Denji Kalkin opportunity. I have many ideas at this point. I see a lot of opportunity within the sales sector, the marketing. Talks with the people in marketing. Because they're also like making purchases in China. So like there's people who they talk to in dispatch, the relationship. I get to see like how the business works, like from that point. I'm like, I've seen how business works from like the entry level, the beginning, my mother's relationship, to a point where it's that like on the corporate level where you got people like in different places in this, working in dispatch, HR, you have access to all these things and you get to see how that works together to achieve one goal, like this is like really interesting. And I started going into deep with it, went into deep, researched, came up with a lot of ideas that really did well with the company's fire sales. I think when I left, I was one of the people I think even now, nobody has ever topped my record as far as like sales and whatever. Nobody has ever topped that. Even the ideas, the apps that they have, the artists that they bring in. At some point, I brought in people like Wilichan, Zola, people like a few people that Gigi Lamin was not a part of the project that I did. Gigi Lamin was like 2 months before I left. But people like Kuli Roberts, people like Zola 7, those are the people that came through my channel, you know what I mean? And through that, I was like, oh, okay, like snap, like I can like have the same effect in people and like sales and everything, and got a chance to talk with CEOs and got to see like how they think, and how they are so in tune with the numbers of the business, like those people didn't know like the day-to-day of the business, but all they had to do was look at the numbers of the business, and those would tell them as to where they're going or what's working, what's not working, which product is the top selling, which one wasn't working. So they were in tune with the business in that sense. And that's where I want us to talk about stats and probability. So knowing that, and I was like, oh, this is crazy, because I was talking to one of like my general manager, who was a good mentor as far as like business is concerned, my personal mentor. But I'll talk about that more when we come back after the break. Please don't forget to follow, subscribe, rate this show to get a notification for each and every time we drop a new episode. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Let's meet after the air breaks. Cheers. Welcome back to Backroomconvos. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Let's get it. On this week's episode, we are talking about entrepreneurship, stats and probability. If you didn't catch the first one, I was talking a bit about my story as to how I got it, wada. So you might hear on the background, you might be wondering what's going on in the background. So we have a couple of people for sure who are listening into the episode. The first person is Nicole. The second person is Johannes, Eddie Murphy. I spoke about him earlier on, so they are joining us. How are you, Nicole?
I'm good, and you?
I'm good. It's good to have you on the show, man. Good to have you on the show. What do you think so far? Tell us what you think. Are you nervous?
No, I'm not nervous.
Okay. I think Eddie Murphy is still connecting, but for sure, when he does connect, we'll we'll greet him so you can also hear his voice. So I did mention before we started the show, the song of the day is Johnny P's Candy, which was a part of the album Tana Talk 4, which was released in 2020, which features J. Cole. The album is Benny the Butcher's album, but J. Cole was featured on the project. So yeah, I think we should go back onto the Terry story that I was telling you about. To say, when I was in that, I met Terry, who was my mentor in everything that I did in business, and I achieved a lot because of him. I became a manager because of him. I became a manager because of him. And when I started, realizing that, maybe Lesego, you can do this on your own, maybe you can do this on your own because you've invested a lot into, the company, that particular company. You've invested a lot and you've seen the growth, and it's given you confidence, and you've grew to the point that you grew. And I was like, that's all I needed. That's all I ever needed when I was starting with like business and entrepreneurship, and that's all everything. That when you're a kid, go back to, when you're a kid, you always have ambitions. You're always ambitious about everything. If you try this, try that. And I was always that person who's very ambitious, right? I was very ambitious. But because I also had Terry, who also was the guiding light to my journey into entrepreneurship, he helped me, shape my perspective, shape the ideas to actually seeing them coming fully fledged and actualizing. He helped me so much with that, as far as like how to craft the proposal, how to talk to employees, how to be, how to get optimum results, how to use that. He taught me a lot of those things, and I gained so much confidence, and it validated a lot of the things that I thought. Sometimes you tell yourself that you can do certain things with your life and achieve certain things, but whenever there's someone who's like, saying, bro, yeah, you can do it, and he's giving you the platform, and he's trusting you with that platform for you to experiment, to grow. He did that for me, and to a point where I was like, I think now I'm ready to do this on my own. You know what I mean? I've experimented, I've grown to a point that I've grown. As much as there was positions involved, that I'll be a manager of some other store, because I was a manager of some store given me that. So I was supposed to be in the lines, not really in the lines of becoming a store manager again, but I wanted more, I don't know. And with podcasting, I was like, always wanted to do podcasting, but is it the right time? When do you know it's the right time? When do I take the jump? And I finally did take the jump, and it was very interesting because I'm still learning, I still have ideas, but with also ideas, it brings me to the next point. With ideas, we need to have a vision or a picture of the end goal. And Elon Musk talks about this in an interview that he had with Joe Rogan, the first person principle, on how to have a vision and break it down to smaller portions. Then you build from that point going up. I took it, implemented that into that podcasting, and we're still growing till today. So I want to talk about, how important it is to have stock taking. I think to talk about stock taking in the business, it's also understanding VUSI. It's also biggest contributors in your profits. It's the biggest contributor for you to understand where the losses are coming from and where the profits are coming from. That gives you a direction of where your business is going. For people who don't know what statistics is, statistics is analyzing information expressed in numbers, right? Probability is a possibility of a thing happening. So to have those things work hand in hand. So when you have statistics, you can use those statistics to see like you can kind of tell projections. That's a projection. If you want to know a projection of something, to say, okay, this business will be in point X in 3 years. So you're going to use that to say this business has been growing with 3% for the past 5 years. So the projection that the business might grow another 3% next year, they are very high because it's been growing for the past 5 years. It's been growing at 3%. So it's likely that in the next year it's going to also grow the 3%. You know what I mean? So that's how you use stats. Use those numbers to tell on probability. Those stats inform the probability. That's what I wanted to say. So the projection of how companies work, you say, okay, how do you project, or how do you say, okay, the China said in 2030, I think, in 2030, was it 2030 where they said all the kids in China will be millionaires. Everyone in China will be a millionaire. So they're using numbers, they're using data for sure, statistics. They're using those numbers to say, okay, we see that our economy is growing to this point, and this is what we are implementing, or these are the tools that we are using as a calculative measure to see we are going to get to that point in this amount of time. And the probability of that happening is high because of this growth rate that we have, given the tools that we've used to measure that in time. So even in business, the same goes with it. You use the stats, the numbers that you see from the stock take that you do to tell on the losses, to inform the losses and the profits, you know, to know which, okay, what's working in the business. Okay, if we are running a shoe business, which shoes is selling? Are we ordering more of those shoes, or are we ordering less? Which shoe is not selling, so we can order less of that shoe? And it will help you as far as like projecting, okay, if we can increase size 6 of this shoe because it's the most bought shoe, by the next 6 months, if we order, we are going to be at this point if we continue. Because in the past 3 months, we've went stocked out on these particular shoes. And if we can have more of that, we can grow at 3% in A, B, and C. You know what I mean? That's using stats, and the probability of you winning because of those stats is very crucial. So I want to talk a bit about also entrepreneurship, how I identify entrepreneurship. But entrepreneurship is the ability to see a gap in the market and making sure that there's a market in the gap. So I'll repeat that. Entrepreneurship is seeing the market, is seeing a gap in the market and making sure that there's a market in the gap. You know what I mean? So I think in that you can play around it. Play around that. Also implement stats and probability for the success of your company. Projections. We spoke about projections. Also implement that in your business, because it's very important to know how much you make, how much you lose in a day. It will also inform you of your growth. And say, for instance, you want people to invest in your business, and you have a paper trail of, you know, those numbers. No, numbers don't lie. You know, numbers don't lie. You have those statistics of the numbers, which will inform the probability, which is the projection of where the business will be in 10 years, which also, by saying that, it also informs the investor as to say if your business is a lucrative, or if it's a global route for them to invest in your business based on the number they have on your business. You know, that's why it's really important to have paper trail. Paper trail you get from stocktake, and that stocktake will inform you of profits and losses. Those profits and losses will serve as the stats that will tell on probability. Probability will win you numbers. It will win you the numbers with investors. You know, it will win you the yeses in the boardroom with investors. I think that's where it is. You know, I want to bring in the story. I think also VUSI once touched on this story. He was saying, Guti, the reason Abu Mama, Abu Mkosi at the Kasi or whatever, they are not winning, it's because they are not implementing stats and probability. How much are we making it there? How much are we losing? What's working? What's not working? How are we adding more to this business? You understand? And there's always that thing, but we work in the business. There's people who work in the business, is people who work on the business. Successful people in business, they work on the business. They don't work in the business. So you have to find a balance as to how you work on the business and not in the business. For sure, I think it's very important. It's very pivotal for you to be a part of the growing stages in your business, to be a part of every aspect, to know how everything works in your business, in that sense that nobody should come as a third party and tell you things about your business that you don't know, because it's easier for them to rob you with everything that's happening in your business. So you need to know your business to the T, and the way you know your business, it's by those numbers. Those numbers are very important. I think if you can sit with those numbers, imagine if our grandmothers who had shops, who had quota shops in the hood, were using stats and probability to adjust. You know, it also speaks about what you call this evolution. You know, like there's those people there, what you call this survival of the fittest. You understand? In order for you to survive, you need to stay relevant. And how you stay relevant is always having the things that people relate to. Understand? Even in products, it works like that. You can't have something. You can't have winter boots in summer. Who's gonna make a purchase of those? You understand? So you need to adjust accordingly. So it's very important that you also look into that in the business. I think emphasis is on stats and probability. Those numbers will tell you as to where you and your business should be moving, what you should be purchasing as far as like product is concerned. It will tell you, it will inform you as to how you should be moving. And if you want to implement something, give it a pause of 6 months to see if that is successful. And if it doesn't work, try another thing. I think that's one of the important things in business. I think for people who didn't know, I want to bring this in. For people who didn't know, there's investors who invest in scientific labs. There's people who invest in scientific labs for products that are going to be successful in the next 10 years. I don't know if there's people who knew about it. So there's people who invest in such companies, laboratories, to say, okay, in 10 years time, there'll be such and such disease for South Africa. So this kind of product will be successful there. So if they invest in that on an earlier stage, they get to get the stock cheaper. Whenever it hits the market, because it's relevant at the time, the numbers go up. You know, that's what I'm saying to you, to say, in order to be relevant, listen to those numbers, speak to those numbers, understand the numbers of your own business, guys, you know. And I think I was enjoying this episode. For people who just joined us, on the line, we had Nicola who left us. We also had Johannes, who also is with us, but he's with me right at the moment, but he can't join. I don't know what's the problem, but you know, the points that I wanted to make in business is that probability in entrepreneurship, they are very crucial in the success or the relevance of your business, you know. So because I think for people who don't follow VUSI THEMBEKWAYO, he has a great analogy about this. I suggest for those of you who don't follow him, go ahead and follow him. He has amazing content for entrepreneurs, beginner entry, very direct content. You'll grow and learn a lot from that. You know, my friend Murphy bought me a book today, you know, and I think this book will make it the book of the day. So he bought me a book called Managing Emotions for Financial Freedom, The Invincible Force of Driving Your Money Habits. It's by Mavis Eureka. She's a black woman. Shout out to this. I am for sure going to read this and give you a feedback of the book. So the book of the day is by Mavis Eureka, Managing Emotions for Financial Freedom, The Invincible Force of Driving Your Money Habits, by Mavis Eureka. So please make sure you like, you follow the show, you rate to get a notification for each and every time we drop a new episode. And I think I touched on a lot of things in this episode, went over time even, but guys, don't forget stats and probability as an entrepreneur. Very important. The song of the day is Johnny P's Candy by Benny the Butcher and J. Cole. The album was released 2020, called Tana Talk 4. It's Benny the Butcher's album. For those of you still awaiting J. Cole's album, The Fall Off, yes, J. Cole is about to release The Fall Off, the album. So this is a feature that was released in 2022. So, and I've seen like a lot of, we can talk a lot about hip hop maybe on another episode. I know Setu is also a big fan of hip hop, who's also a part of this community. He's interested in like this. Maybe we get to have him on the channel, speak about hip hop, his take on like the Aries album. For those of you who listen to Aries album, please let us know what you think of that, and if we should be having a roundtable discussion about the album and what improvements should have been made and how the numbers and dissect the bars, all that stuff. Please let us know in the comment section if you need us to talk about that. You know, I really enjoyed this episode in our road to 100 subscribers, not 100 subscribers, in our road to 100 episodes, so we can have that video podcast. So to the people in Botswana, we appreciate you because we are ranking number 7 in Botswana, and currently in South Africa we are ranking 90. It's bad given that we come from 23 to 90, but it's cool. We win in the numbers game. You know, we really need to be consistent and release an episode a day. And by far, we're the only podcast in the world that's releasing an episode a day. I did check, we're the only episode. If we can do it consistently for the next 3 months, you know, I think, I don't know, how does this Guinness World Record thing work? Maybe we can run this thing for the next year and apply for the Guinness World Record to say the most consistent podcast who did this, released an episode each and every day for a year. Maybe we can do that as well, you know what I mean? I don't know, but you let me know in the comment section what you think we should do. Song of the day is by Benny the Butcher featuring J. Cole. The name of the song is Johnny's P's Candy, and the book that my friend bought me, Managing Emotions for Financial Freedom, The Invincible Force of Driving Your Money Habits, that's the book of the day. I appreciate you guys listening to me. Please don't forget to rate, follow the channel to get a notification for each and every time we drop a new episode. I'm your host, Lesego M, Daddy Report, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy Nakaro. Let's meet on another exciting episode. Cheers.